Top story. Good evening, everyone. Dave Huffman and KARE 11 sports producer Steve Leary were headed to South Bend, Indiana for a Notre Dame football game.
Police say their car left Interstate 90 and traveled more than 1,000 yards in the median before landing between a guardrail and an information sign. Huffman, the driver, was killed on impact. Leary, who was asleep, is hospitalized with serious injuries. Investigators say alcohol is a probable factor in the crash. Tonight, our team report begins with KARE 11's Julie Borgen. Julie?
Well, it's pretty tough. He was really a solid guy.
In his 41 years, that's an impression Dave Huffman left on nearly everyone he met.
Montana had been saving a screen pass.
First as number 56 at Notre Dame, an All-American and four-year letter winner. And later, in his 11 years with the Vikings, the offensive lineman built a reputation that's hard to forget.
He was a very good football player, and no question about that, an outstanding player with us and at Notre Dame University.
And former Vikings head coach Jerry Burns says it wasn't just his talent on the field that made him special.
He was a good guy, a humorous type of guy, a guy that kept the locker room free and easy with his constant joking.
I played with Dave back in '84.
Green Bay Packer Reggie White says it may have been 5 years since the two last met, but he still smiles when he looks back on their rivalry.
It's fun to be around. He seemed to enjoy life. He enjoyed the people that he worked with.
Randy, as always, we're going to talk about the keys to tonight's victory.
One of those people was KARE 11 sports producer Steve Leary. Huffman was taking Leary to his first Notre Dame football game this morning when the accident happened.
The vehicle was traveling at a high rate of speed and traveled for several hundred yards through the median and then struck a guardrail and a large information sign.
Huffman died on impact. Tonight, those who knew him say football has lost a legend, and they've lost an even better friend.
It's really a tragedy to see someone as young as Dave be taken away from us.
Now tonight, our sports producer Steve Leary is in serious but stable condition in an Indiana hospital. He suffered cuts and bruises, but he could be out of the hospital as early as Monday. Tonight, the Indiana State Patrol says this accident is still under investigation. Rick and Rux?
All right, Julie, thank you.
Thanks. Well, tonight our team report on the Huffman tragedy continues with a look at what made the former Vike so popular.
KARE 11's Tim McNiff joins us live now from the newsroom. Tim.
Well, Rick and Roxanne, the Minnesota Vikings will observe a moment of silence to honor Dave Huffman before tomorrow's game against Green Bay. That's somewhat appropriate because Huffman was a guy you just couldn't ignore. At 6'6" and almost 300 pounds, Dave was a physical presence, but it was his love of life that was even larger than he was. In 11 seasons with the Vikings, Dave Huffman did nothing halfway. From his play on the field to his pranks in the locker room, everything was done at full tilt. He kept things loose and was never afraid to speak his mind.
We have problems within the team, as you always do in any kind of family, but we like each other.
David said, if it does, and it won't, if it does, I will stand outside the Metrodome in my boxer shorts with a helmet on, and people can throw snowballs at me.
After he hung up his pads, Huffman's bigger-than-life persona made him a natural for the broadcast booth.
Have you ever written a $200 million check?
No.
I don't even... He was shaking a little bit, he said, yeah. So that's a lot of money to change hands.
Randy Shaver worked with Huffman in both radio and television and called him, among other things, a friend.
He was just able to make you feel, whether he was having a bad day or not, he would make you feel so good, And I'm gonna miss, just having that kind of a person around me.
With us, he was a pretty easy-spirited type of guy.
Jerry Burns coached Huffman from the time he arrived in Minnesota as a rookie. As Burnsy watched his Hawkeyes lose to the Gophers at the Dome today, it was another loss that weighed heavily on his heart.
It's really a tragedy to see someone as young as Dave be taken away from us.
And talking to his wife.
Well, this is a tough situation for all of us. Dave Huffman was a guy who made a positive impression on everybody he met. He was a guy who went out of his way to share a laugh and make people feel good, and he will be sorely missed. Rox, Rick?
All right, thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
A Minnesota man accused of selling a house with a faulty furnace has been acquitted of manslaughter charges. Todd and Cheryl Burt lost 2 of their 3 children to carbon monoxide poisoning 5 months after buying their home from Dan Newbarth. The prosecution accused Newbarth of negligence, saying he knew the furnace was not working properly when he sold the house. After 8 hours of deliberation, the Stearns County jury found him not guilty.
I'm glad. I don't know what to say. I'm just happy. it's a tragedy for the birds, but it's been a horrible ordeal for us as well.
The prosecution admits the investigation in this case was flawed. They say the furnace had been tampered with, and it took more than a year for investigators to look into it. The Burts say they now plan to file a civil lawsuit.
President Clinton made his first televised comments about the impeachment hearings from overseas. In South Korea today, the president said he's been through a lot of suffering because of his affair with Monica Lewinsky, but he trusts the American people and Congress to do the right thing in a non-political way.
And every day, I do my best to put it right personally.
Several GOP lawmakers now predict dozens of House Republicans may join Democrats in voting against impeachment if it goes to the House floor. But first, the House Judiciary Committee has to debate and vote itself. That's expected to happen sometime after Thanksgiving. Well, one of the first wave of American soldiers is back home tonight from the Persian Gulf. The troops from McGuire Air Force Base were sent overseas to prepare for a possible strike against Iraq. Although they're happy to be spending Thanksgiving at home with their families, the soldiers are only a handful of tens of thousands of troops remaining in the Middle East.
It'll cost you a little more this year to feed your family a traditional Thanksgiving dinner with all the trimmings. The average holiday takeout meal for 10 people will run you about $33. The American Farm Bureau Federation says that's about 4% increase over last year. Experts say the increase is due to a lack of turkeys and milk products and a slight increase in the cost of living. Hundreds of Minneapolis families had plenty to give thanks for this holiday. Today, volunteers from the Minnesota Vikings handed out food to more than 2,500 families, and Green Bay Packer Reggie White also took part in Operation Blessing.
A Rochester family is celebrating 4 tiny miracles. Melanie and Rick Hoover became proud parents of quadruplets yesterday morning. Mayo Clinic doctors performed a C-section on Melanie, and in a matter of 3 minutes, Noah, Ashley, Nathan, and Alyssa Hoover entered the world.
Start delivering the babies, it'll come fast. So then I got up over her head and looked down and saw them taking them out one at a time.
Now, those babies are in the intensive care unit, but doctors say they should be home in time for Christmas. And the Iowa septuplets will spend Christmas in their new home. It has 7 bedrooms, 4.5 baths, and a huge living room. The spacious house was donated by the McCoy's neighbors. Bobby, Kenny, and the kids wasted no time adjusting to those new surroundings.
Well, it looks like it. Time to take a short break, but later a foul roundup.
And coming up, they are the Purple fans who cheer on the Vikes, whether they sack the Pack or not. That is tonight in the Extra.
And I'm meteorologist Belinda Jensen. Still pretty mild out here. We have a beautiful Sunday coming up with plenty of sunshine and temperatures, yes, in the 50s. I'll have